lost a bunch of money. So,
hey everybody, it's I'm Dan Adelko, and welcome to Live at the Hive, episode 38. I thought it was 37, but
no, it's 38.
I don't know. We missed 1 week one time because the power went out, and I had never been able to get it back since.
It's the Lost Atlantis episode.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So sorry we were 1 second late there. It looks like Facebook was having some issues, but they've got more than one issue today.
Yeah, that live stream glitch is the least of their problems right now.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, call Mark Zuckerberg. I'm sure he's going to care. All right, so today on Live at the Hive, what do we got? We are covering a whole bunch of stuff. Today we're going to talk about e-commerce attribution. We're gonna get to that at the end. Assisted conversion channels, how to realistically grow your e-commerce store month over month without just shooting from the hip and hoping and praying you're gonna get more customers. Big changes to Google Ads. Still getting used to that.
Yep, some very large platforms coming up with some very large feature releases and revamps for Q3 and Q4, as usually can be anticipated at the start of any quarter. If you're looking for any sort of updates from your favorite platforms, we have some changes from Hootsuite, some changes from Google Ads coming right now. So
Yep.
yeah, we'll walk you through a bit of what's happening this week in the world of marketing.
Yeah. So yeah. So kicking it off, I think this one, let's see here. Let me just get the scene ready. This one was one we were actually just talking about. We'll get to the biggest one is probably, well, Facebook's largest single day loss of value in the history of the NASDAQ.
Yep.
Although, it hurts, but it probably hurts the speculators and the Wall Street guys more than anybody because they're still raking in a lot of cash.
Yeah. Not a milestone that you want to hit though, but
No.
it happens. Every
No.
day can't be a great day for Facebook.
Well, for sure. And one of the things that did come up is that this is the fallout from everything that has happened.
It was predicted, wasn't it?
It was. I don't think it was quite as
not to this scale.
not to the scale that it happened. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I think they expected the fallout a little sooner. In the Q1 and reports and such came out. It was all, look, we're not that affected. The drop was only minor, but I think that it's a longer term than just the next month that they needed to think about. But I know there was also a bit of blame shunted at the GDPR as well in all of this, and that I was reading some stats about 1 million active users lost on Facebook because of the GDPR. Not sure where that metric is coming from, but
I think it actually came from Facebook themselves. And my take on some of this is that they, so Zuckerberg said, in reaction to it, we are investing heavily in security, I think over $1 billion to be invested, and also shifting more from newsfeed to stories, which they have a lower ad revenues. These are a lot of things that, from a valuation perspective on Wall Street, that the investors don't really like to hear. Right.
Yep.
And there's a whole bunch of fall in the GDPR. They did lose about 1 million users, and also, and we have to go through all of the stats. Their growth was somewhat flat in terms of new users, which they haven't. I'm pretty sure it was flat, and that's the first time it's happened since 2015 when they went on the market. My reaction to this is, if you've got some money, buy. It's a buy moment. This is what people do, is they don't go and into the state where you could take a couple of $1,000 and throw it on some Facebook stock, because it's going to go back up.
It's the investment corner, the investment segment of Live at the Hive today. Buy Facebook.
You want to build
financial advice.
You want to no matter your financial state, if you take a little bit and you put it in there, you can make some more money.
There you go, people.
Yeah. But just to kind of go over the numbers, this is why. $13.2 billion in revenue for the second quarter. So that's a 3-month period. That's a 42% increase over last year. So that's huge, right? And their ad revenue is $13 billion.
Yeah.
So that's pretty crazy. And so in terms of their business model, I think the flat user growth was probably more concerning, and then Zuckerberg saying, hey, we're going to invest $1 billion into things that aren't necessarily tangible for revenue generation right away, right?
Yep.
It's the investment. And then, the flagging user growth and the loss of users in Europe. all kind of combined.
And this report kind of fits into this storyline if you've been following like the Facebook saga at all. Obviously, like their poster child is Instagram in terms of like growth rates and like user acquisition. And it's no secret really to anyone in the industry that Facebook has been kind of, slowing up and things like that. Not that it's not increasing, but definitely not the rates it was before.
Yeah.
And it's kind of an interesting thing because they promoted and advocated so long for people to adopt Facebook advertising. And they had overwhelming, above any other year last year in terms of marketing spend on Facebook. But then that also drives up things like CPC and the saturation of the market and things like that as well. So it totally makes sense to me that they're expanding into other, formats, other things that they can sell. Did they not say they reached like advertising capacity almost last year?
Yeah, they basically had sold, came very close to selling out their available inventory. So there's a couple of new things. You can actually, a lot like the GDN, the Google Display Network, you can push out display ads and other ads to Facebook partner sites. That's in limited rollout.
It's called their audience network.
Yep, their audience network. And then stories, although they're really pushing stories, are under monetized right now. There's not a whole lot of ad coverage there.
Yeah.
Either. So
but expect to see a lot more ad formats probably rolling out from Facebook as they try to build and expand their inventory, and a lot of education about these new ad formats too, as they want us marketers putting more spend into more different types and spreading it around. So
personally, I feel like it's like it's a business transition, to be honest. Like, I mean, when you are transitioning, you have to understand, like if you're looking at a chart, I mean, let's use the stock chart for example, there's always a spike. It goes down and it's going to come back up. It's the transition period. They're shifting the platform into, for instance, maybe a business module that they've never done before, clearly. So to be honest, the active users getting wiped out, it's almost predicted, to be honest, the way that Facebook's going now with the heavy advertising, and more so business pages are popping more than personal and public figures.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's addressing the problem that's been going on all this year, right? Is how do they protect the platform and the value of it? A lot of the feedback throughout last year and several years, and why they're making the algorithm changes is because people were complaining about their news feeds being too promotional, not personal enough, missing, the actual posts that they want to see. Very often the complaint, right? So I think it's just consider 2018 like a transition year for Facebook.
Yeah.
It's, really their success plan. Like they've reached this level. Now what next?
Yeah. The other thing I think too about Facebook in general is that, the whole notion of move fast and break things. They did move extremely quickly when they put together their ads platform and their algorithm and their news feed. And if you look actually in the article that's on the screen right now, you'll see that Alphabet, which is the parent company of Google, which totally sounds like it's out of a video game. It's totally out of, anyways. They had a 23.6% increase in the second quarter in revenue, which is also pretty amazing as well. Now, Google has been much slower in a lot of ways, which sounds weird, but they have, right? They've been rolling out, like what we're going to get to next is the new Google Ads platform. Yep. But certainly they've been around for a whole lot longer than Facebook has, and Facebook was playing this catch-up game. And I think they admittedly had made mistakes in terms of how you could target. For example, one of the things that you could target that really was kind of not great from a public relations perspective because it was abused was targeting political beliefs, ethnicity, religious beliefs.
Religious orientation.
Yeah, sexual orientation was actually in there. And we know that during the 2016 election that was heavily abused by a lot of these fake Russian pages that they were creating, right, and promoting content to people like that. So that's an example of moving maybe a little too fast. The couple of the interesting things that I read over the last day on this news was this was a bigger loss than the loss that wiped out Nortel. That was a few years ago. So it's not a small thing. Like this could wipe out. This has been known to wipe out other companies in the past. Although from a lot of the news that's coming up, they're expected to survive and probably thrive off of that. I don't think they're going to go anywhere. That their investors have enough faith and the shake in the platform, right? Versus what could have happened to a Nortel, which was a kind of a very different, serious set of problems. Yeah. Cool. Okay.
For sure. But
So-
yeah, very much heavy in the news right now. Lots of Facebook talk. Feel like there's been not a week gone by that we haven't had an update from Facebook.
Always an update from
The
Facebook.
continuing saga.
Yeah, absolutely. So next up,
Yeah, but we wanted to talk just a bit about Hootsuite for a second.
Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because speaking of Facebook, they're actually, Hootsuite and Facebook are playing nice together again. Myself and the other Hootsuite ambassadors on the Honeypot team were given our Q3 update in terms of the features, and Hootsuite's really focusing on enhancing some of its existing features. So one thing that is like a thank God to all community managers is they brought mentions back. Facebook and Hootsuite worked it out. They ripped mentions out a couple months ago with all the changes on Facebook. But they developed a specific API for Hootsuite so that they can now do Facebook mentions, and you'll also be able to do LinkedIn account mentions as well soon. They've added that extra bonus, maybe as like a please forgive us kind of a thing. But yeah, so very exciting. Also user interface wise, if you use Hootsuite at all, whether you're a free account or enterprise, you'll have a new content calendar. I've done like a little demo. It looks very similar to like a Google Calendar if you use it like that. It's just a cleaner interface, a more simple view, and it allows you to dynamically do everything from that interface as well, including like approving drafts and different elements like that. But yeah, one of the things we were really excited about was just the new Composer as well. If you use Hootsuite for creating your content, if you're an enterprise customer or you use an enterprise account, you have your content library, and you can actually now access that. It's integrated into the actual Composer. So if you are,
nice.
yeah, so there's no longer like a little folder that you have to randomly go into and add it. Your content creation process is streamlined, and it's just much more efficient. So yeah, lots of exciting things there and exciting tools coming out from them. They're supposed to roll out as of Monday, and then over the next kind of 2 months or so.
and I guess you can't actually show it, right? It's not publicly visible yet.
No, but on our Facebook page, we actually shared, they did like kind of a live stream yesterday, and we did share that. So if you just take a little scroll down our Facebook page, you can watch their live stream, and their product team does a rundown, really good. But yeah, the other thing that I was actually personally most excited about, because I needed the tool this week, is they finally have comparison reports. So,
Very good.
I don't know, but they finally caught up to all the other platforms, and you can do year over year and month over month comparisons for growth rates and things like that. Just make your reporting a lot more simple. So yeah, really excited to use that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the biggest things about Hootsuite that the reason that we're an enterprise partner is the content libraries. When we get those loaded up, it gives us a lot of flexibility and a huge time saver. And then obviously reporting back to clients, and just reporting for yourself. If you're, if our social team is running, we want to be smart about what content is delivering and performing, and jumping back and forth. The Facebook Insights, Facebook Analytics is better. But the Facebook Insights is really kind of lame, and it's being retired anyways. So
Yeah, they're trying to fix it. They're trying to fix some of the gaps that are in the Facebook ad and the reporting. But Hootsuite, especially when you're doing goal setting for campaigns, it's great that they used to show you just the straight up numbers. But really, if you're actually doing a social program, you're looking for growth month over month. So it's really, I'm glad. It's been a long time coming, I would say, personally, but I'm very happy that they've added it. And yeah.
Absolutely. Very cool, very cool. So next up on the hit list here, and this one's actually really big news.
There's been a lot of chatter about this since it was announced. Was it yesterday or the day before?
Yeah, it was yesterday.
Yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday. So how do you say it?
What? Get out of here. What? Atlassian?
Atlassian, you got it.
I call it Jira.
Atlassian. Well, Jira's one of their products, but that's okay.
I use Jira and Confluence.
I call it Confluence.
Yeah.
Well, now you can call it Slack, because
Yeah.
actually in a pretty cool, what I thought were a pretty cool series of tweets last night, Atlassian came out and was very complimentary to the Slack team about the great job that they did building this, and Slack, if you don't use Slack, use Slack. That's the first thing I recommend it.
Rule number one.
Where work happens.
It's where
I love their tagline.
It is. It's got so many cool features like reminders, workspaces, custom channels, single channel invitations, stores all of your files for you. So when you Slack somebody a file, it stays in the history on a paid account, so you can look it up in the context of the chat, which I do all the time. they've got a ton of like secret little tips and tricks that you can do. It's like a Giphy integrations, which is awesome. That's always fun.
Yeah, we have some of those.
Yeah.
You can connect your Google Drive as well, so any files that you keep in the cloud, they can also be imported into Slack.
Yep. But you know, the chat messaging world has been on fire for quite some time. HipChat wasn't bad, but they came out and kind of admitted that, you know what, you guys have nailed it, so we're buying you.
Yeah, let's not reinvent the wheel when it's already spinning just fine. So yeah. Excited to see though what that kind of combination looks like. I'm sure, you know, even if you're not a project manager straight up and it's just part of your job, it's anything that can make that sort of, you know, streamlined management process easier. I'm all for it, giving it a try. So yeah, I know they're trying to give Microsoft Teams a run for its money right now in terms of a competitor. That's what everyone's saying kind of strategically is the reason for this acquisition. But yeah,
I think, you know, well, Microsoft's just a behemoth because they can push so many users from Office into this thing. But I feel like in a sense it's like Microsoft Teams might be looking to try to compete with Slack, to be honest.
I think they are actually. They actually introduced a free month of the service just after this acquisition. So I mean,
right.
I mean, I think it's good for, to be honest, I think the purchase of Slack is actually good for both. It limits the competition, but I feel like it benefits Slack the most because it takes out its key competitor that it was actually bought by.
Yep.
So why wouldn't we drive all the traffic towards Slack? But yes, definitely Microsoft, I do see them taking steps and trying to compete with that.
Yeah.
So Microsoft, watch out.
Yeah.
Slack is going to start dominating the market even harder.
Yeah. And the nice thing about Slack is Slack has really is API driven. And so there's integrations with almost everything. So, you know, the old days of, I'm sure they'll probably add features to Microsoft Teams, but there's a cultural thing where there's very few companies, whether they're very tech savvy or less tech savvy, there's very few people that I run into that don't use Slack in a workplace.
Or that can't,
or it's one of their options. So yeah, very interesting news, but it was funny, just anecdotally. So I have a bunch of developer people that we follow each other and stuff like that, and there was a bit of smack talk going on, and it was a little bit stupid, I would say. Like, look at that, Atlassian, you suck. And it was like they just complimented each other and like they bought each other. Like, what's the big fight going on here? But again, it's Twitter.
Yeah.
Right.
Twitter is made for it.
Absolutely. Okay. So moving on right now, and this is probably going to be the bigger topic.
For sure, yeah, and I know we've alluded to it before from their Google obviously had a lot of hinting and things like that about their rebranding, and at their conference this month they also walked through a lot of the new AI features and things like that are going to be happening, and now the rollout is officially upon us.
Yep.
So the rollout includes a lot of different elements. They had a lot to say at their conference, but definitely some very large overarching themes. Definitely, obviously, trying to make it easier for people to use Google Ads now, not AdWords, without a sort of a management or an entrepreneur kind of directly getting in there and doing it themselves. It's a huge part of this AI push. They have what they call smart campaigns now. So it's, I don't know, a lot of people who are professionals in the industry, such as ourselves, are very kind of waiting to see how that comes out, because they've tried to do kind of guided campaigns like this before, but it's the old argument of like it's human experience over like the discretion of a computer. So sometimes there might be issues with it. I'd use it with great caution at first until we kind of see some other people use it as well. To see exactly what that does. But there are shopping campaigns, search, display. There's about 4 different types that they've rolled out that you can experiment with now. But very much just trying to shift from a keyword-driven environment to more of a behavior-driven environment, which is kind of the name of the game across the board at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so the biggest thing is that the new material design rollout is happened across all of the products now. There's very few products that aren't fully rolled out, which thank God, because that old AdWords interfaces, I know as many PPC people on our team members were married to it because you learned it that way. It was a terrible interface, and we kept having switching battles on different accounts. But the new UI is far more intuitive. It's way faster. It is actually mobile friendly, and they've released new tools and a new pixel format for retargeting audiences, and conversion tags too, which is, so there's a lot more than just a name change going on here. From a name change perspective, it's Google AdWords doesn't reflect the power of that whole platform because they also renamed DoubleClick. There's the Google Display Network, you've got YouTube, and again, I think the one of the big points here is that not immediately, but there's a shift away from keywords and towards audiences and behaviors, which is what really, I wouldn't say Facebook popularized it, but it really is a major feature. Is you're looking at audiences and heuristic profiles of people, and both your own audiences, custom audiences, and lookalike audiences, as opposed to necessarily building up massive keyword lists, right? And the shift is coming for that, but the UI is one big change.
Yeah, I also agree. I mean, we're shifting now from like what people are trying to search versus like what, instead of what they're looking for, like what do they need? Like who are these people? Like we want to get products to people that we feel need them, rather than the people that are just searching for them. I mean, like I do like the idea of going for a more data-driven platform rather than just keywords. And again, when you said about the name, Dan, AdWords is clearly not a reflection of the power of the platform.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's important for them because, you know, even especially with clients that might be not as familiar with it, the impression is that you put this little text ad on Google search engine, right? Like a lot of people that say that, and it's like, yeah, but no. But I agree. I think audience building, and look, the data's out there. When we build audiences, you see the types of profile elements you can get. It's tracking your behavior, but it does allow for a more personalized ad experience for sure, right? And that's the move towards audiences. Like we have this multi-step audience building and then campaign delivery process that we use. It's effective because you have multiple, and this kind of leads to what we're going to talk about in what's working, is the ability for you to talk to and get your message out across multiple platforms in multiple contexts. So if that individual is going on YouTube for a bit, mobile apps, Google search, obviously, mobile search, right? You get all these opportunities to reinforce your messaging, right?
For sure, yeah. And to that point, I think that like if a lot of people are paying attention to kind of the user interface, obviously getting a lot of attention. They've come out and said it's the biggest rehaul in like 15 years that they've done. So this is a huge like pre-planned kind of rollout for sure. But they've also added a lot of like smaller features here and there that I think is based on a lot of feedback as well, just from the team, and like from the users of the platform itself. So in terms of like, there are some things that are also obviously their own kind of agenda, like the AMP features. There's now a mobile landing page score that you have seen added. It's a new column.
Lots of mobile features.
And that's kind of being looked at as like a way for them to promote AMP. They've also added AMP ad placements as well. And apparently it's display only right now, but apparently they serve 5 seconds faster than regular display ads, so to speak. So
one of the big things in the overhaul is actually, and it's up on the screen right now. So if you're in the PPC game, quality score is the thing you really are living and dying by, for a ton of reasons. And quite frankly, I'll just get to it here. Let's see here. There's a screenshot in here of the old one. There it is. The most useless feedback that you could ever get from a platform is right there. And the reason is it doesn't give you the full picture. If you're running PPC campaigns and you see that you've got 8s and 9s and then you've got a bunch of 3s and 4s and something's relatively, you get basically 3 things that you can go do, you know? Fix the click-through rate, fix the relevance, fix the landing page. But there's history behind raising a previous quality score. There's all sorts of other metrics that go into it. And now you get historical performance as well. So you get more understanding into the quality score, the historical quality score, and how you can push that value up. And when you change various elements of that, whether it's the copy or trying to get a higher click-through rate, this is a big part of that rollout as well. So that's why I think the point is that, yeah, there's a visual thing, there's a branding thing, but there's a lot of things underneath the surface that have just been released fully. Yeah, and it's a pretty big deal.
For sure, yeah, and it's across the board too. It's not just one particular section. They've revamped like the whole suite, and it's all focused on just that extra targeting and adding that behavioral element on top, just so that everything is more qualified and you get better results and people are using it more, which is obviously their end goal. But for example, one thing we're excited about is in-market ads audiences that they've added to search. They've had them in the GDN and display for a while now. But in-market audiences are when someone by Google is deemed to be like further down the decision cycle or decision funnel. And so, they're not searching kind of keywords that are very high level, fluffy, just introduced to the topic. They're maybe done their research, maybe they're at that purchasing level and thus theoretically more qualified for you. So it just helps you segment like your funnel itself, so that instead of just thinking of running one campaign at your audience, you're thinking of more how you can run these complementary campaigns in many channels to filter them through your funnel.
Absolutely. And if you're a marketer or if you hire an agency, you want to make sure that they are crafting in-market campaigns in the rest of the campaigns, because that targeting can be valuable. And the thing is, it changes quite often. So for example, it works in the B2B space. If I'm assessing meeting software like Join Me or Blue Jeans or Go to Meeting. Yeah. So likely what I'm doing is I'm visiting sites like Capterra. I'm looking around. Google is tracking all of that information, and if they see that my information is leading them to say, yeah, this person really looks like they're in market, I will be added to that audience, and then you can target your advertising to those people. And yeah, it's an amazingly powerful feature when used appropriately. Like, you got to use it properly.
And it's just taking what you already know about the platform and the strategy of PPC, make your message as timely and targeted as possible, and it's just making that even more possible for you. So it's like not just this person is interested, but at what point in their research are they?
Well, I think now they're even trying to throw in the features too. Like, for instance, I'm reading here about the Google Assistant, how it's going to make buying easier. They want to make sure that they want to even introduce the payment methods just through voice activation. So if you want to buy something on your mobile phone and you see it, you just click or you tell Google to buy it for you. I mean, they're really trying to push this whole, you've seen the ad, now how can you buy it? What's the most convenient way to buy it? Here, we've done it for you almost, sort of thing. They lay it out to make that middle piece between the buyer seeing the ad and that checkout process as little as possible.
Yeah, we're jumping around the list here, but Google Assistant voice ads, there's a couple of other cool ones here, but see, there it is. That Google Assistant. So, if you're advertising your product, you want to get in on the voice train now. Amazon Alexa, Google Assistant being the two biggest, Apple Home as well. Those three open up wildly new opportunities. In particular, Amazon, I think, has the strongest play for obvious reasons.
Yep.
For sure.
The integration with their e-commerce, so you can just say, "Hey Alexa, reorder my Cheerios or whatever," and a drone will fly it out.
And even from an SEO perspective, I know that at least for the last year, that voice search and how to incorporate voice search into your SEO strategy, and are you creating content that's directed towards voice search and to capitalize on that traffic? Definitely a huge new topic and a new area, at least in the last year, that people have been definitely getting into. So,
yeah, for sure. The next one that I thought, there's like I said, there's a whole raft of stuff. This one is actually pretty interesting as well. There's a couple of new products completely. One is Google Attribution, and if you've ever tried to do attribution, it can be really messy. There's a lot of pulling data together. It'll be interesting to see how this free tool, obviously, that Google is doing, is figuring out where your customers are actually coming from. And we're going to follow that up with talking about assisted conversions, which is kind of a simplified It's a little bit more simplified than full attribution.
Yeah, so those are, and that goes, the Google Attribution tool kind of goes hand in hand with the Google Optimize tool that they've also added. And that's one that I've heard a lot of talk about and a lot of excitement. A lot of people use landing page platforms, whether you're using Unbounce or HubSpot or whatever it may be. You're probably variant testing. You're probably creating a lot of different, a lot of different variants for different audiences, things like that, and tracking performance. Sometimes, depending on the tool, it can be a bit of a manual experience, and it could require some dev knowledge and help. So what Google's trying to do is they're billing this as like variant testing without any dev. So that excites a lot of people.
Yeah.
But also just curious on how just that integration is going to work, what kind of performance stats are going to be reported into like this optimized tool, and just like how is it logistically really going to come together is what people are curious about. And are there insights they're going to be able to give us beyond what like a regular Unbounce platform could give, which is, we love Unbounce, but the performance metrics are fairly basic. So
yeah, we would be getting the attributions and connecting all of those for sure. But it's a cool new tool. It's definitely what you want to learn and know more about when you're doing your marketing.
For sure.
So this one, speaking of Unbounce, Google Optimize, landing page solution, and A/B split testing, multivariant testing with a new fresh look. Definitely worth trying. One, if there's Optimizely and VWO and a number of the big ones that you're running tests on. The benefit here is that you're plugging in very easily and probably very deeply into a Google, the Google marketing. It's called Google Marketing, I think, now. The Google Marketing stack. So interesting, definitely worth trying. I'm sure that you're going to get really integrated reports between your AdWords or your Google Ads, your analytics, and Google Optimize. So that's another.
And you can see that they're kind of encroaching on these third-party tools that people often use to kind of fill in the blanks as they move towards this whole umbrella, like all-in-one kind of a concept, which is interesting because typically platforms that do that are not quite as large as like Google, and typically it's a little bit of everything. So it's interesting that they're kind of going both, and they're like, we have these incredibly in-depth tools, now let's make it a suite. So it's an even larger suite than it already was.
That's right. Yeah.
Might just be using Google all day, every day at one point.
Well, and this is part of a little bit of the, I guess, the danger too. I mean, Facebook is still out there, but again, if you have a marketing stack that includes things like Optimizely and a very large team, and you've got a PPC team, you got dev support and all of that. Yes, you can kind of do a lot of the things that you want to do. If you're a startup or even an SMB in the space, this can give you a lot of power very easily, and that's their approach, right? The other cool one that it seemed a little bit quieter to me, but it is always something that we like to do, which is surveying. Surveying customers, surveying leads. Like, it's a great way to simply get a lot of really good user feedback on the value of your programs.
Yeah, people tend to sometimes think that like surveying and that kind of feedback and that level is more of a luxury of like a larger company or an enterprise company, but really, now with the ability of like to do it, I'm sure you've seen one. If you watch YouTube videos at all, you've probably seen the survey. For sure. It's brand awareness, it's seeing the retention as well as the advertising campaigns. So, at one time it may have been extremely expensive to conduct that kind of surveying. Now, it can be done right from Google.
I think they even, the whole point of this was also to limit A/B testing and actually to make it a lot easier. I mean, with the surveys, the feedback and the data-driven results that you're going to get can definitely compile into your composition of your future landing pages or anything that you're actually trying to, the data you're trying to get from the survey itself.
Yeah, your ad copy, all of those things.
And really it comes back to like the thing that we hear most often from people. I don't believe there's anyone out there who couldn't leverage, the Google ad platform for their marketing, but oftentimes people come to us and say like, we tried AdWords, it didn't work. And it's just because of the learning curve. It's a specialty. It's a huge platform. There's lots of experience that comes with it. And clearly, they're trying to make it as easy to use as possible. You can see with like Dan was discussing the ad rank transparency that they're trying to show that used to be kind of like a trade secret, like, oh, your past account performance affects your ad rank, but so now they're just trying to put it all out there, and like they want people to get great results for obvious reasons. You're not going to put spend onto a platform that isn't performing. So at the end, I think that it's great for like entrepreneurs and small businesses and things like that. But again, you know, I would say use caution. They have tried kind of like things like this before that have not worked out. So just as in terms of the smart campaigns when you're getting into the AI.
For sure. And you do want to have a handle on your campaigns and your campaign setup. And I think Alex might have some insight into this. He's been thrown into the deep end with our traffic team on the amount and level of detail that you can go into. You need to go into in order to do a proper setup.
So I mean, the whole thing with the setup is that it's just that currently on the AdWords platform, there's a lot of, for instance, the integration, the UI makes it very hard to actually collect your data all in one place. So I'm really hoping that this new UI allows for the whole setup of for instance, audiences, ads, copy, all in one place, and kind of just a clear, like step-by-step process. Because as of now, you don't really know what you're doing, or you kind of do, but you kind of don't. The words are there, the instructions are there, but no one's telling you that you need to imply this, you need to add this kind of piece here. So I'm hoping that maybe they'll introduce some sort of step-by-step in order to like, hey, this is what you need to do to start. Hey, this is what you need to do to finish. Now, you know, you've drafted an ad, or you've really drafted a campaign that will get you that data, will drive you those results. Because as of now, I feel that you can be running ads with a lot of incomplete details.
Yeah, you can, and that's part of the problem. That's why what we do is we go into the details. So we create our dashboards, and now we're actually getting into what's working. This is kind of the first step. When you have your marketing channels and campaigns, the first kind of most common mistake is I throw up an ad, I run it to my homepage, I give it 3 or 4 keywords, broad match across North America, running 24 hours a day. So I'm marketing to people in a Iqaluit. I think I said that right. But you know,
I have to go with that one. Why did you say Vancouver?
Well, maybe, you know, somewhere far away. You know, you're selling bathing suits to people in the Northwest Territories. How's that? Yeah. Not that it doesn't get sunny there in the summer, I guess. And hot. Does it get that hot up there?
I couldn't tell you. I don't plan on going to the Northwest.
There you go.
It seems too cold for me.
Yeah. But the problem is that, yeah, to Alex's point, it's very easy to do an incorrect setup. It's very simple to make those mistakes. You need tracking, conversion tracking. You need to set up. You should be setting up remarketing groups that are growing. You should be ensuring that you're writing more than one ad. 4 to 6 ads per ad group, and let Google Ads test it, for example. And same thing on Facebook. Run A/B tests. It makes a huge, massive difference. So, you know, a lot of times what happens is you go in, throw 2 ads in there, a bunch of broad match keywords. So for example, with broad match, it means that world, so if I'm an optician or I sell glasses, right? Say I'm an optometrist, so I'm trying to find new clients. If I had optometrist, Kitchener, optometrist, Waterloo, and that's it, and I just put them in as broad match keywords. If somebody types, how much money does an optometrist make in Toronto, because I just have the word optometrist, or in China, or in India, my ad will deliver for a broad match in any context possible. So you're not getting the right attribution, you're not getting the right customer for that, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of people say, oh, my ads don't work, AdWords didn't work, or Google Ads didn't work.
Yeah, and they maybe understand the basics of plugging in keywords and things like that, and can use Keyword Planner, but there's other things like we've seen, you know, a classic example is like homonyms, for example, that people are targeting, like to your optometrist. You know, example is like glasses. You know, it could be like people could be looking for buying glasses in Kitchener, Waterloo. You could get glassware coming up.
Wine
you know,
glasses.
like yeah, exactly. So there's issues like that as well when it comes to keyword targeting. So I think it's interesting that they're trying to enhance the behavioral element of it, which is really across the board what what most platforms are doing, what most marketing is moving in that direction, right? Whatever can qualify the audience more.
Yep. So one of the things that we've got, and I'll just throw it up here, is a few steps. So if you're doing e-commerce right now, and it really doesn't matter, you know, we're Shopify fans, we're Shopify partners. So they make it, Shopify really helps you a lot, but WooCommerce has a lot of great tools as well. Tracking is number one. You have to track absolutely everything. And if you don't, you will 100% of the time, you will fail.
Yeah, if you want to increase your revenue month over month in e-commerce, but you don't know where those sales are coming from, how are you going to do it, right? So it seems like a logical thing, but it's the kind of KPIs you're tracking as well. You know, you're not just looking at that one number. Of course, you're going to look at that, you know, that net sales for the month, but then there's also like sales broken down by channel and different elements like that as well. So kind of walk through a bit of how you actually get a proper view, and then how you take that information and make tweaks to different elements of your marketing strategy to increase that month over month.
Yeah. So, and this is a very common thing that we hear, is I just want to quadruple my sales. And so just put more Google ads there. More ads, more keywords. And oftentimes we have to kind of pull back. And it's I know it's hard to do with clients in the e-commerce space, but you know, it's like trying to win a Super Bowl, but your team doesn't have any helmets and no shoes, no cleats. Like everybody else has helmets and cleats, and you guys are out there in bare feet and no helmets. You're going to get destroyed. So it's very similar. This is the stuff that you have to do and the ways that you need to think. And it doesn't matter if it's e-commerce or lead generation in B2B. So Courtney just mentioned one is tracking multiple channels and being able to understand the entire funnel from each channel, because they're all going to be different. So you have inbound Google organic, inbound Bing organic, which is still a big search engine, Bing ads, all the Google ads that you've got, social
breaking down by channel too. Facebook, Instagram, Facebook mobile versus Facebook desktop. It gets very granular. Facebook particular user of a Chrome on a particular provider. It's insane, the granularity.
Yeah, and that's important to be able to see that full funnel view and goals in Google Analytics and funnels, so you can track and see larger patterns. Really, the next point here, point 3 on assisted conversions, is the single biggest misunderstood thing in the world of PPC and digital marketing. You know,
I like to call them a pleasant surprise, because most people don't realize they have them, and then you walk them through their assisted conversions, and you're like, you actually had, you know, twice the number of purchases than you thought. And
yeah. So there's two things that come along with this, and I think we went through this week, Alex, on some of our campaigns. There's a type of it's called conversion attribution. This is a Google Ads feature. And by default, it's set to what's called last click. Okay, so last click means the last thing that happened before the purchase, it will be given the attribution or the credit for that conversion. Now, unfortunately, that's often very wrong. And when you don't have the right conversion attribution, you're not associating where did that new customer that purchased come from, especially when you're doing paid advertising. So for example, and this is where we get into these assisted conversions. So for example, I may have, let's just say I'm selling water bottles, and I got my Shopify store, right? And I'm selling all these different Nalgene bottles, right? And people are gonna price check, so they're gonna price compare, they're gonna do Google search, hopefully they'll come across my store. Maybe they'll type in, you know, Dan's water bottles price. Okay, maybe they see that, maybe they click on my Google ad, so now I've paid them, right? Paid for it. Then they go check our Facebook page to see if they can get a discount. And then when they finally make the decision, they direct type in danswaterbottles.com, go to the site, finish the purchase. With last click attribution, my Google ad gets no credit for that conversion. Right? When in fact it participated, there was 4 actions there. It participated as a 25% influencer in that final purchase, right? So I know, and it's a tough thing to describe, but assisted conversion and the type of attribution it's called, so this is getting into a little slightly more technical. The one that we recommend like 99% of the time is called time decay. Okay, and it lasts a 90-day cookie, so it lasts a while. And the closer your the closer that your channels are to the point of the actual conversion, the higher the percentage and credit they will be given, which kind of makes sense.
Yep.
Right? You know, so
it does. It brings them, like, you could credit each of them, but as it brings it down, like, what was the decision-making factor there?
That's right.
You know, was it a webinar that they attended and were like, yes, I have to buy this now?
Yeah.
You know, or was it, you know, a flash sale campaign that finally pushed them over the edge because it was a price issue for them?
I think I'm going to actually cut this video and, like, use it for other things. Because there's a big explanation here. Because, so when we are managing e-commerce programs, which we manage quite a few, if we don't set up the proper time decay and attribution, and then create what's the last one is a blended CPA, and we'll touch on that right before we wrap. Without the assisted conversions and without time decay conversion, what's going to happen is your direct traffic purchases will increase and your ad-driven attribution won't. And then your client is going to say, you guys didn't do anything because look at, we're just driving more traffic. We don't know how.
Yeah.
And the answer is that there are like 4 to 6 steps that consumers take before they do it, and you're just not properly giving the attribution where it should be.
And it's funny because when you think about it, like, direct traffic is going to always be part of a funnel, you know, whether it was a digital initiative or not. Like, perhaps they met a sales rep at a conference and they spoke about it, and then they went and typed in the URL directly. But it's very, you know what I mean? I think it's very common, especially for not like a household name or something like that, right? You're a small to medium business. People don't know you. They're probably not often typing in your URL unless they've heard about you or experienced you in some other way.
Well, think about it from a marketing perspective. What I would say is that the ultimate measure of your overall marketing efforts combined is the amount of direct type traffic that you get.
Yep.
Because people know you. They're typing your URL and they have a bookmark for your
site. It's really a
site.
brand awareness gauge, kind of, more than, you know, like, because do people actually know, like, who you are? Are they...
Yeah. How many times have you searched for a product and on the first ad that you clicked on, you bought? Unless it's something that you know exactly what it is.
It's got to be very eye-catching, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
But also, wouldn't, like, the data would be wrong. It, like, means it's wrong. No, if we're not setting up this campaign properly, how do we know how to develop our campaigns further? How do we really know what's driving consumers to our product? We really don't.
That's
because
right.
we don't know how much the ads or the platforms are actually assisting in the conversions. We can only see this final click or this last click that's coming through the direct source.
Yeah, and when you cut
exactly
through all
right.
like the technical elements of it, it goes back to one of the most basic fundamental advertising strategies, and it's the touch point theory, right? You want, they traditionally always 7 was the case. Now that's arguable, but 7 touch points. You know, there are different elements on different channels and different messages that you're giving to construct that funnel for somebody.
Yep.
It's not just, you know, think of when you're having a debate with somebody or a conversation, you're not just going to say one thing to them and they're like, sold, done, convinced, you know?
The other thing to think about, both with your Facebook advertising and with your Google ads and any online advertising, is quite often your first click will be the ad, because you're putting that in places that these people haven't seen you, right? So
for budgetary reasons too, should be, you know, you don't want to put that, go for a sale, you know, you don't want your click to be like it's easier to gain someone and market to them through content and remarketing and things like that. It's less expensive.
That's right.
Yeah.
Generate a lead, add them to a remarketing audience, give them something of value, but understand that your ad budget will quite often be front-loading that user experience if you've generated and put together and taken time to understand how your assisted conversions work. And I'll throw up a little sample here that'll help illustrate it. So when you set up multi-channel attribution, and assisted conversions in analytics, let's see if I can maybe zoom in just a little bit. Yeah, I can do a little bit there. So what you're seeing there is this one is measuring direct traffic, referral traffic, and organic search. And you can see the 3 large circles on the screen there. The crossover is the percentage of people that participated in all 3, where the 2 circles cover. It's where people the actual purchase, those 2 channels participated together. And then the second one would be the opposite 2. If you see those circles almost overlapping, and that's not an uncommon view right there, but that's probably about, that's 44%. And you see the crossover on that, so it's probably about 22% in the visualization. That means 22% of all your purchases have gone through 2 of those channels. That's a lot. If you understand that, you can optimize that experience.
Exactly.
Right? If you don't, you're just gonna start, then what's gonna happen is you may say, oh, forget it, you know what? My paid program is not working, I'm shutting it down. You just cut your nose off to spite your face is what ended up happening, because you weren't realizing that ad campaign was actually participating in the conversion journey, for sure.
And that's where people will say that AdWords doesn't work. Right there. That's when small businesses would realize that this isn't working. When you're looking at it, the brand awareness can be almost up to what I'd say almost 50% of it. Like if you don't know about your company as a small business, these ads are pushing it to places where they technically should be, because you're targeting the people that it's most relevant to.
Yep. So the last thing, and I know again we tried, but we didn't make it. We're 52 minutes. We were shooting for 40, but we didn't do it. The last one is calculating what's called your blended CPA, and this is outside of, we use Supermetrics typically for this because there's a lot of calculations that need to happen.
Cost per acquisition for beginners out there.
Yep. So when we're calculating cost per acquisition on each channel that we have, so you may have Amazon running, Google Organic, Google Ads, Bing Organic, Bing Ads, and any other channel you can attribute your sales to. You need to understand how in an omni-channel world, all of those purchases do work together as well. And the goal is to get to what's called the blended cost per acquisition across all of your active channels, right? Because what you need to see is, well, yeah, maybe my cost per acquisition is $74 over here on Google Ads, but Google Organic, it's $1.20, right? But the ad starts the organic journey, and the organic journey can support the ad journey. So you have to get a blend of what's called, and then the last part, super interesting. If you're not into numbers, it's going to put you to sleep. If you're an e-commerce store owner, I would think you'd be sitting on the edge of your seat.
You should be.
As you should be. It's what's called weighted averaging. And it happens a lot on Wall Street. Day traders do it. You have to give the number of purchases to the cost per acquisition. So if I have 74 purchases at $22, and then I have 2 purchases and my cost per acquisition was $172, the 2 purchases need to be weighted as less important. You can't just take the average of the 2, because the average of $20 and 120 will be somewhere right in the middle, right? It'd be like the median.
It's not accurate at all.
It's not accurate at all. It would be that 2, so if you sold 100 items and 98 of them were at $22 and 2 of them were at $120, you only count the 2%. The weight is 2% on the overall average and 98% for the 22. You'll get something like your actual cost per acquisition was really $24 or $25. Because and we've seen this before in other metrics reporting, when people look at it and they go, well, that's it, it's all over, game over, man, I'm turning this stuff off. But it's totally inaccurate, right? So it's really important. And we can, you know what, I've got, I don't know, dozens of these documents. My eyes are red because I just finished another one today. But we can put together a template and probably post it up on the recurring event, which I'm sorry I will review, and we'll put it live on Monday. Anyways, we are 55 minutes, so we've been longer, we've been shorter. We tried.
We can say we tried.
We did our best.
Lots of updates from Google. It was Google's fault, really.
Yeah, that's right. It's totally Google's fault. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for joining in. Have a great weekend, and we will see you next week.
Yes,
All right.
see you guys.
Have a good